And although numerous statutes such as TILA, HOPA, the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, the Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act, RESPA, and the Home Mortgage Disclosure Act gave the Fed the authority to act, nothing was done. The Fed also made major forecasting errors leading up to the recent crisis. Then, after the housing market bubble began to burst in 2006, the Fed was slow to entertain possible spillovers from the housing sector into the general economy and the financial system. Finally, in response to the growing crisis, the Fed took actions that often appeared to be ad hoc and piecemeal. Many of the Fed's responses, in my view, greatly amplified the problem of moral hazard stemming from too big to fail treatment of large financial institutions and their activities. In addition, some Fed actions were taken in concert with the Treasury, blurring the distinction between fiscal policy functions of the Congress and Treasury and the central bank's monetary policy and lender of last resort functions. Under Chairman Bernanke's watch, the Federal Reserve vastly expanded use of its discount window, including the provision of funds to some institutions over which the Fed had no oversight. The Fed also created new lending markets that were deemed most stressed and systemically important. Consequently, the Fed's balance sheet is ballooned from a pre-crisis level of around $800 billion to more than $2.2 trillion through credit extensions and purchases of risky private assets, GSE debt, and U.S. Treasury debt. Many Fed actions were innovative ways to provide liquidity to a wide variety of financial institutions and market participants. Some actions, however, amounted to bailouts. When dealing with individual institutions deemed systemically important by the Fed, shareholders were wiped out and management replaced. However, in many instances, bondholders were made whole even though they were not legally entitled to such favorable treatment. Using powers granted under Section 13(3) of the Federal Reserve Act, the Fed made it explicit that certain institutions and activities would not be allowed to fail. Recently, certain Fed governors have stated that private risk absorbed by the Fed involved only a small portion of its enormous asset holdings. Furthermore, some have suggested that the government might even make money on some of its risky deals. And while some of this might be true, I don't believe potential profit is the appropriate metric for evaluating government support of private risk. Taxpayers simply should not be subjected to possible losses from private risk. Mr. Chairman, for many years, I held the Federal Reserve in very high regard. I had a great deal of respect for not only its critical role in the U.S. monetary policy, but also its role as a prudential regulator. I believed it to be the nation's repository of financial expertise and excellence. And over the years, we have enacted a number of laws which demonstrated our confidence in your institution. We trusted the Fed to execute those laws, when deemed prudent and necessary. I fear now, however, that our trust and confidence were misplaced in a lot of instances. The question before us now, Mr. Chairman, is what are we to do about it? Currently, the committee is discussing, as Senator Dodd said, the future of our regulatory system. To the extent that we can identify weaknesses that contribute to the crisis, we should address them. But not everything that went wrong can be blamed on the system, because the system also depends on the people who run it. It's those individuals who need to be accountable for their actions or their failure to act. Mr. Chairman, I believe in accountability. The Senate's constitutional authority to advise and consent can be a highly effective means by which this body can hold individuals accountable. It's a process through which we can express our disapproval of past deeds or our lack of confidence in future performance. We continue to face considerable challenges, including still stressed financial markets, rising non-performing commercial real estate loans, tight credit conditions, record-high mortgage delinquency rates, double-digit unemployment, hemorrhaging deficits and public debt, and concerns about the size of the Fed's balance sheet, the value of the dollar, and the possibilities of yet more bubbles. Certainly, we're still deep in the woods, Mr. Chairman. The question before us is whether Chairman Bernanke is the person best suited to lead us out and keep us out of trouble. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Senator. Chairman Bernanke, welcome again to the committee.
Thank you. Chairman Dodd, Senator Shelby, and members of the committee, I thank you for the opportunity to appear